Hey everyone, welcome to another video of DC NBA Junkie, where I'll be discussing NBA related content every single day. I'm continuing a new series called NBA Team Futures, where each day I'll be deep diving into a different NBA team and talking about my stance on each team moving forward from the NBA hiatus. If that sounds interesting, then feel free to tune in on some fresh NBA content. For today's episode, I'll be taking a closer look with the Portland Trailblazers. With the likes of Damian Lillard, McCollum, and Hassan Whiteside, the Trailblazers look strong with talented players. However, with their lack of bench depth and injuries of Jusuf Nurkic and Zach Collins, the team hasn't seen the best success as of lately and should look to turn things around. Let's get to it. But before I begin, make sure to leave a like on the video and drop down in the comments section any suggestions for future video ideas or even ideas for future series, because any suggestions from you guys are highly advised and recommended. And lastly, make sure to subscribe. We're all here for some fresh and nice NBA content. Now, without further ado, let's take a look into the future of the Portland Trailblazers. Now, to begin, I want to begin with the team overview for the Portland Trailblazers. This year they finished, as far as the season went, 9th in the Western Conference with a 29-37 record, which was a decent amount behind not too much, it was only 3 games behind the Grizzlies and substantially behind the remainder teams. But as far as I know, as far as it goes, they have Damian Lillard, they have McCollum, and Hassan Whiteside, and I would agree 5 to 6 other solid players on the team, including Jusuf Nurkic, Rodney Hood, Carmelo Anthony, especially Anthony Simons, one heck of a sophomore year for him, and even Gary Trent, I would say, is a pretty solid scorer off the bench, and I'll give a mention, I guess, to Trevor Ariza. So they have really solid players next to Dame and CJ, so that's about 7 to 8 players, but the problem is that they're one of the worst performing bench teams in the league, and that's one of their issues that they fall back on, because they've suffered injuries, and that's been the biggest part, is that they've had times where they've just been injured and they can't always get that bench production from specific players that they need because they're not here around. It was really helpful for them, I believe, to get Hassan Whiteside and trade for him because of what they gave up. I don't feel like it was that big of a risk. They gave up Myers Leonard, who was already not doing too well. I think he was drafted with that Lillard draft, so he was already kind of just showing himself as a solid backup center in the league, and they even traded away Maurice Harkless. So I don't think it was much big of a risk to bring Hassan Whiteside in. It's a 1-year contract, but as far as I know, they've won. This season wasn't one of their best. So when we look at them, they were second in blocks. They were in the bottom of the league in steals, and they were also top 5 in turnovers. So just some notable things to think about. They're one of those teams that are really talented, but especially this year, they've just struggled as of lately. All right, next I'm going to go into Whiteside or Nurkic. This is something I feel like they need to think about when they're going into their future, is they got to pick one. I think Whiteside and Nurkic really, I don't know if they're going to be able to coexist, especially with Whiteside making so much money. I don't know how much he'll get paid off this offseason. I don't think it should be as much as he got, but it does need to be discussed because Nurkic was injured, and there's the back and forth because Nurkic was injured, but he's significantly cheaper, and he's around until the 21-22 season, so 2 more years on a $12 million contract. When he was playing, he's really good value for what he's really good for his value. And on the other side, you got Whiteside, who doesn't have the injury issue. However, he did fall off, but he did, prove himself this year. And not only that, but unfortunately, he's just more expensive. So, in my opinion, what I think they should do is, if they can bring bring back Whiteside, they should. And I think they should try to keep around both and see how that works out. But if they need to choose one, I would go with Nurkic because of the cap opportunities you get when releasing Hassan Whiteside's contract, as opposed to letting off Nurkic, paying Whiteside his money, and with the contracts you have already, it would be pretty hard to rack in any more quality players. All right, next, I'm going to talk about C.J. McCollum, because his importance to the team has been really substantial over the time, but unfortunately, this team has just not seen, it's not been able to get over the hump. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year, but they got swept. And he was the biggest reason why they got there, because they went to a Game 7 with the Nuggets, and he just had an amazing game for them when Lillard wasn't even doing too well. You have C.J. McCollum who comes in and he's clearly shown that he's a great player in this league. He's one of the best scorers we have. Not a very good defender, but can really create himself a bucket and a good catch and shoot guy. Unfortunately for this team, they're in a rough patch, like I said. And in order for them to get over this hump, they need more depth. They just need more opportunities in this team, and just a more well-balanced array of solid players. So I feel like what the team should think about is CJ's ability to help this team with this large contract. Is he giving you the production that you're expecting of him for his contract? Right now, he's making $27 million. That's right up near Lillard's contract. So you have to think about, when you give him that much money, are you sure that's what you want? And they gave him the money, so they've clearly shown that that's what they want. But I think they should honestly think about what they want to do with C.J. McCollum in the future, because maybe dealing him could be the difference between a potential title run in the future. And next, I want to go into the free agency view. This is the section I do with every single team, and it's just talking about their free agent, my view on their free agency this upcoming season. And so the notable free agents, like I already said, Hassan Whiteside, he's on his he's a current free agent. He will be a free agent. Carmelo Anthony, and then Caleb Swanigan. And they're projected to have about a $12 million cap, and I don't know how that works with Hassan Whiteside's contract. I'm going to say that assuming that he's not on the team, but I don't know. But I just know that they should have around a $12 million cap. So I don't know where they'll be aiming next year. I think they should bring back Whiteside if they can, just try to lower his contract if he's okay with it, because he just showed this year that he can be a really good player on a really solid team. I don't think he's the number one option, but I think he could be that center on a really good championship team. And so because of this, they do have cap flexibility, and what this team needs ultimately are, one, they need playmakers for that second unit, because outside of Lillard and I guess Simons, you don't really have much as a playmaker. I don't think they have any more solid playmakers. I wouldn't consider C.J. McCollum a playmaker except creating for his own shot. Front court players, like I said before, Nurkic was injured, but they've lacked in the front court with these injuries. They've had Caleb Swanigan and Nasir Little, so these kind of players are not what you want to have in your front court. And a spark plug, someone who can come off the bench and give you buckets. So players I think could really help them is re-signing Carmelo Anthony is a must, I believe, for what he was paid this year and what he did. He's a great kind of spark plug player. A front court option would be Aaron Baines, if they can afford it, because of that $12 million cap, you could sign 3 solid players, but I think Aaron Baines would be one of those guys you put a little bit more price on if they wanted to do that. Jay Crowder could be one of those more cheaper routes if they want to add a guy who could become a spark plug or just a depth in the second unit. And even Reggie Jackson for that playmaking role. He's playing with the Clippers, but if he wants more money, he could come to the Blazers and get that. So those are the things I think they need for free agency, and I think those are the things they should be looking for. And lastly, this is a hypothetical section I do for every team, is if the season continues. And for the Portland Trailblazers, they're currently out of the playoffs, but I think this is actually kind of interesting to talk about, because there was a report that came out, I believe yesterday, about Damian Lillard talking about how he's not going to play with the Blazers for the remainder of this season, if there is one, for them, if there's no chance for them to make the playoffs. And I think that he's right about that. There's no right for him to play. He's a superstar. If he's not going to be able to get an opportunity for the playoffs, then he shouldn't have to play. But what's interesting is they should think about how they're going to do a playoff format, or even if they don't do regular season. And I think a play-in could be really interesting, having the bottom teams try to play in for the playoffs, or to play in for potential playoff spots, because they didn't get an opportunity in the regular season. But I do want to say right now, the Blazers weren't an amazing team this year. Let me just put the record straight. They weren't an amazing team this year. I know Lillard was injured. I know Nurkic was injured. I mean, like, Lillard was injured part of the season, and Zach Collins was injured most of the year. But to be honest, for what they did, they weren't one of the most impressive teams this year. So I'm just going to add that in. I would think it's kind of interesting, though, to see them in a potential play-in opportunity. And my big question, kind of ending this off, is Dame is to stay. I mean, I don't have the official contract for him, but he's at least wrapped in for a contract for the next plenty of years, and he says that he wants to stay there in Portland. But how long will that last? Like, how do you know that after that contract ends, he's not just going to say, I'm going to leave? Like, you don't know that. So I think right now you need to prioritize trying to make this a winning environment now. I mean, you could argue that they've been in one, but they haven't made it to the finals. I'm just saying, they've had opportunities. Last year was one. I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, I'm really excited when Nurkic comes back to see what he does, but, you know, how long will Dame promise to stay here if he's not winning, or if they're not trying to make it so he can win? And with that being said, that will be the end of today's Team Futures episode with the Portland Trailblazers. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video, and drop a comment down below about the video or any suggestions for future video ideas. Thank you very much, and have a great day.